how do you justify the idea of rights? How do you set about convincing people that humans, a mass of cells, flesh and bones, have natural, absolute rights? The First Amendment of the US Constitution, for example, expressly forbids the making of any law respecting the establishment of religion, but the Constitution itself and its unalienable rights were influenced by and grounded upon the religious reasoning of John Locke. So the right not to be forced to practice a certain religion was initially justified religiously. Writing almost 100 years earlier, in 1689, just after the English Glorious Revolution, Locke's two treatises of government was initially thought to be an attempt to justify William III's overthrowing of the Catholic James II, but some claim it was written before this. The fear of Catholic tyranny in England was widespread, and Locke had also argued for religious toleration in a letter concerning toleration. The second treatise, the more important of the two treatises, is also a rebuttal to Thomas Hobbes's royalist absolutism, a justification of the king having absolute power, and was the first attempt to lay down the insoluble natural rights of man. The first treatise is a refutation of Robert Filmer's monarchical and patriarchal 1680 book Patriarcha, while the more famous second treatise draws out Locke's social contract. Locke starts by defining his state of nature, the hypothetical state humans lived in before establishing society. In Locke's state of nature, men are in a state of perfect freedom to order their actions and dispose of their possessions and persons as they think fit. It is a state also of equality, wherein all the power and jurisdiction is reciprocal, no one having more than another, there being nothing more evident than that creatures of the same species and rank, promiscuously born to all the same advantages of nature, and the use of the same faculties, should also be equal one amongst each other, without subordination or subjection. But this state of nature has a law of nature to govern it, which obliges everyone, and reason, which is that law, teaches all mankind who will but consult it, that being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possessions. For men being all the workmanship of one omnipotent and infinitely wise Maker, all the servants of one sovereign Master, sent into the world by his order and about his business, they are his property, whose workmanship they are made to last during his, not one another's, pleasure. This is where Locke begins his religious justification of our four natural rights: the right to life, health, liberty, and property. Locke's argument here is also established in an essay concerning human understanding, when he says that humans, as opposed to animals, have light enough to lead them to the knowledge of their Maker and the sight of their own duties. Locke says that anyone has a right to punish transgressors of this law of nature, but the problem for Locke is that men are biased to their friends, and that their passion for revenge will carry them too far when punishing others. For this reason, civil society and government are created as arbiter, whereas Thomas Hobbes, writing before Locke, granted the sovereign absolute power over the people. Locke stated that as it is set up to protect the natural God-given law of nature, the right to life, health, liberty, and property, it is subservient to that law, so that if the state becomes tyrannical, the people are justified in overthrowing it. He said that whenever the legislators endeavour to take away and destroy the property of the people, or to reduce them to slavery under arbitrary power, they put themselves into a state of war with the people, who are thereupon absolved from any farther obedience, and are left to the common refuge which God hath provided for all men against force and violence. For any political theorist, though, the question becomes why? A cohesive and coherent theory has to be backed up with sufficient evidence and argument. It's all well and good saying that we have the right to life, liberty, health, and property, but without persuasive reasoning, the the arguments are open to attack from, say, an authoritarian or fascist, or a Karl Marx could come along and counter with a theory of property that some find more persuasive, not least because of its depth. But for Locke, the reasoning is purely theological, and the second treatise, while influential, even for his day, lacks depth. His theory for justifying property follows the same rationale. Locke says that, as King David said, God has given the earth to the children of men, but that this doesn't answer the difficult question of how someone can come to own anything. Locke starts off by saying that God has given men both the earth and reason, and that men have property over their own person. Nobody has a right over the body of anyone else. So that if man mixes the labour of his body with something of the earth, he makes it his property. If this wasn't the case, man would starve. Thus the grass my horse has bit, the turfs my servant has cut, and the ore I have digged in any place where I have the right to them in common with others become my property, without the assignation or consent of anybody. The labour that was mine, removing them out of that common state they were in, hath fixed my property in them. This theory of property comes with two provisos. First, that there is enough and as good left in common for others, and second, that as much as anyone can make use of to any advantage of life before it spoils, so much he may by his labour fix a property in. Whatever is beyond this is more than his share, and belongs to others. This is the spoilage proviso. Locke says that no man's labour could subdue or appropriate all, nor could his enjoyment consume more than a small part, so that it was impossible for any man this way to entrench upon the right of another, or acquire to himself a property to the prejudice of his neighbour, who would still have room for as good and as large a possession. Thomas Jefferson wrote that John Locke was one of the greatest men that ever lived, and Locke's writing was quoted by Samuel Adams in an attempt to gain support for the American rebellion against British rule. Locke had a hand in writing the constitutions of Carolina, but his writings were also considerably criticised. Locke was a major investor in the Royal African Company, which traded in slavery, and not only did Locke justify slavery, but Barbara R. Neal has pointed out that Locke's theory of property conveniently excluded Native Americans from the right to their land, as they only caught animals on it, and did not cultivate it or mix their labour with it. Philosophers have since attempted to secularise Locke's theological argument, but Jeremy Waldron concludes that it is not persuasive without a belief in God. I think it's far more convincing arguing for right on utilitarian principles, that we have the right to life, liberty and property, because under our current societal configuration, it's what provides the most utile outcome for society, rather than by arguing that we have rights because they are naturally endowed upon us. As Jeremy Bentham famously put it, natural rights may be just nonsense upon stilts. If you like these videos and would like to support me making more, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook by clicking the links in the description below. You can like this video and subscribe to the Then and Now channel to see more. And if you're feeling really generous, you can pledge as little as $1 towards the creation of each new video. You can click here to find out more. Thank you.